Hey, everybody. As you know, we just recently got back from the Tokyo Disney Resort, and Tokyo Disney Sea has debuted the newest nighttime show at all of the parks around the world, and it's called Believe Sea of Dreams. It was intended for their 20th anniversary celebration, which of course kicked off in the fall of 21. But unfortunately, due to COVID, they kept delaying the debut of the show. They kept having different protocols and things they had to meet. And eventually, they just delayed the show until after the 20th anniversary, in fact. And it finally debuted in November of 2022. Now, as always, with these reviews, we're going to get in depth. We're going to get kind of crazy. We're going to get into the minutia, the details, everything that's good, bad, and in between of, again, Believe Sea of Dreams at Tokyo Disney Sea in this honest review. Okay, so we're going to do this one a little different because it is a show. We thought it might be fun to kind of watch along and sort of dissect it as the show goes on. Obviously, I was there when both of these videos were filmed, so we'll relive this a little bit. It's the first time I'll relive them in video, having seen them in person. So Jake has Jake. Let's we may not need both of them. Let's try the one with the projections and see if that captures everything we're looking for. It's a beautiful logo. Okay, so first let's quickly talk about viewing. Obviously, a lot of the regulars are complaining about how you have to go about seeing this show, essentially. So the space we're in is directly behind. It's at the back of Mediterranean Harbor, which is the entry land of the park. This is where all the harbor shows have ever been staged. Fantasmic was here. That was their last nighttime show. Very different from the Fantasmic, you know, if you've been to Anaheim or Orlando, for that matter. And so this is a standby viewing area. This is open. You don't have to win a lottery. You don't have to buy Premier Access. You don't have to be part of a vacation package. There is very limited great standby viewing. This is absolutely the best standby viewing space that is offered for the show. I couldn't tell you how long you have to show up because this was like just about the first preview performance. We ended up, I stood there all day because we had to get video of the show and it had to be good, right? So you at home could see it. So I don't know how long. I mean, I'm sure Spencer will go sometime soon and give us a report of, you know, how early that viewing area has people in it. It certainly should calm down a little bit as time progresses. So yeah, there's going to be some comparisons made right away out of the gate. I see people in the live chat. We are filming this during our 50-hour live broadcast to benefit Toys for Tots, and then it'll re-air later. A lot of people automatically draw comparisons to Harmonious, which is interesting because they're two very different things. Like they are both, in fact, what I would call lagoon shows, right? I mean, it's Mediterranean Harbor. It's a lagoon in the round show, right, with barges on the water. The barges are going to be very different in nature in some cases, right? The two central barges are pretty similar, right, in that they achieve a lot of visuals, lights, some pyrotechnics, video screens or projections. But otherwise, like, this is a show much lighter in pyrotechnics than Harmonious or any show that's ever performed on the World Showcase Lagoon, for that matter. That being said, they brand new for this show, first time they're doing it, full projection mapping on, that's the Hotel Miracosta. And what I thought was super interesting is they're asking guests staying in the hotel, because their hotel is part of the show, to not have any lights on in their room if they're going to be watching the show, if they have their curtains open, etc. And we don't know what it looks like with them shooting a projector into you sitting in the hotel, but people seem to be watching from there, so I guess it's not too bad. And the song you're hearing right now is the main theme, is Every Wish Deserves a Dream, which is a fantastic, fantastic theme, which you'll hear in English, both in the open and finale of the show, but then in the playoff, you'll hear it performed by a Japanese singer. It's a really, really pretty song. I think it's going to end up being up there with Fantasmic and World of Color and all of those as far as theme songs are concerned. Hits all the proper emotions. So there you see we have jet skis with the stars that make up the Sea of Dreams on the lagoon. Peter Pan, Wendy, the Lost Boys are on their golden pirate ship sailing the lagoon. Sort of the hosts of the show, essentially, as we sail through all the different dreams, which will be several different Disney movies. Sometimes they even intersect a bit in certain segments of the show. In spirit, probably most akin to Fantasmic. It's basically a new take on Fantasmic. Instead of Mickey as the host, Peter Pan and same character and their group of characters are your hosts in this case. So I will say, as far as the projections on Miracosta, at no point are they the most intricate projections we've ever seen. Like you're seeing it now, it's kind of just some swirly, wavy patterns. At some points, it projects like what looks like the hotel, but it's just kind of there to enhance. It's never there. It seems to distract. There's a couple moments where it shines the brightest and does something that's more eye-catching, but it's really just there to sort of enhance and create a backdrop for everything going on with all these barges in the lagoon, and the centerpiece, which is supposed to be the second star to the right with those rings around it. And it is in person really technically impressive, this whole central contraption. I mean, it's not pretty, but it also doesn't sit in the lagoon all day like Harmonious does. But once the show starts, it does some fantastic stuff. These LED rings are great around this star that raises and lowers. You see what the star's doing. It's shooting spotlights out and changing color. But these secondary barges, the ones moving around the central barge, are really cool. I'm not usually a big fan of like video wall, but they have fully wrapped these in like a video wall. But what's really neat about them is this reveal conceal idea, right? So they can fully raise to hide all the performers, and in that case, just make a taller video surface. But then they can lower and reveal characters, performers, dancers. But then also the platforms you're looking at now, you see there's a character raised out. Those can go even higher to present those characters for more people to see all around the lagoon. So they're pretty versatile. The show is really well staged. So even if you are behind a lot of people, the show is so tall, other than the pirate ship, which they're kind of low on the water. Otherwise, everything is so high that you're going to have a good view. It's staged really, really well. And we go out of the introduction, and we're going to transition into Arabian Nights and the world of Aladdin and Genie. These are supposed to represent, in most cases, characters and franchises that are in Disney Sea, which is interesting because there's some that aren't, but are going to be soon, and then some that there's no connection whatsoever yet, and maybe it's sort of a hint at the future of the park. But of course, Aladdin representing Arabian Coast, one of the original ports in the park. All in all, this is probably the weakest segment. It's just because Friend Like Me's been done so many times, and they took a weird sort of hip-hop angle with this segment. It's still well done. It's the weakest segment of a very, very strong show. The things you're not going to see in this video is the lasers and such going on Mount Prometheus that make a lot of interesting shapes and all sorts of things happen up there. The other interesting thing that's happening is sort of this, I've noticed this progression more towards Japanese music, right? So the Disney songs presented in the native language, which has not often and always been a thing. Most entertainment, I think about parades and shows, a lot of English in them. And this show is, I think, the most Japanese any of the nighttime shows have ever been there, or most of the entertainment for that matter. So all the Disney songs are presented in the native language there. But there you see some of the cool things happening with that center barge, the rings rotating. that circular screen portion that's raised up into the middle for showing the genie. And all sorts of cool lighting on that top ring. So it's a real versatile setup, which I think at times is way better utilized than the Harmonious setup is, where I don't think there was necessarily anything wrong with the Harmonious setup other than it didn't come in and out every day backstage. I think a better show could have been staged on it. And I think this somewhat proves that, they could develop good tech, and then someone could also, even if it is mostly screens, build a good show around it. Now going into Tangled. So if you look at that central barge, we have Rapunzel up in the tower. The screen is essentially the tower there. And as the song progresses, she will, of course, leave the tower. And to leave the tower, she has to go down. So that screen, there you see it, is going to slide down. Just such a weird and interesting barge. There's just so many weird... None of it's natural, right? They just sort of, it almost feels like they designed the barge first. They're like, here's this really interesting idea. And then it's like, well, what can we do with it? And then they kind of hit the nail on the head. They figured out all the right things to do with this really wacky. I mean, it's really unlike anything I've seen in any show. And we're going beyond theme parks. It's a really interesting showpiece. And Rapunzel is out on one of the floats at this point. She's raised up. When will my life begin in Japanese? So for those unaware, Disney World always does the best fireworks because Disney World has the least restrictions of any Disney park on Earth as to what they can shoot off and how often and when and all of those things. There are a lot more restrictions pretty much everywhere else. So Paris and Tokyo, in most cases, only really get to use this low-level stuff. But I mean, it's never really been a hindrance on either, considering Disney Dreams and this have both existed at those resorts. Here's one of the most impressive effects. Lining all four barges up perfectly to make the Marigold Bridge from Coco across the entire lagoon. And then connecting, you see they're connecting with fountains between the barges. It's just so well set up. This is one of the better segments of the show. The barges are going to drop and reveal a bunch of dancers that look like they're from the World of the Dead. This is one of the better projection mapping portions too, with Pepita and Dante going by, the banners. The whole harbor really feels alive for this number, and the music of Coco just so energetic. I think I will never get tired of Coco being in nighttime shows. I don't think Coco needs a ride. I think this is the natural place for this movie. Its strongest suit is its music, and its music is made for this kind of stuff, to be that real energetic middle number in these shows. I mean, I think it's my favorite segment of Harmonious too, for the record. It's interesting to hear a song that's half English and half in another language than in Japanese, right? So they kick into Japanese and then into Un Poco Loco comes in. There goes Dante and Pepita. They go across the whole facade. I like the balance of IP in this show, right? I feel like there's a little something for everyone, right? If you're of the Mickey Mouse Club generation, there's Peter Pan present, and in fact, they are the heart and soul of the show. If you're of my age group and you grew up in the Disney decade or a little earlier, Aladdin and Mermaid cover you well. And then if you're from maybe like the 2000s, Tangled's a good representation. Then of course for kids, right now, I think Frozen and Moana and Coco. Everyone's covered in this show. So this part is mostly screens, no performers, but it works. Obviously, things have been done before using the, purple fountains to feel like the tentacles of Ursula. Not a ton of pyro, but it always feels like it's at the right times. Always, proper timing, proper effect. We talked to like Don Dorsey and all these fellows that have worked on nighttime shows. Whatever the parameters are, the belief is there's always a way to make it work and make a great show, right? No matter what your pyrotechnic limits are, other limits, a great show can be made. And this again proves that. Sometimes with no limitations, we've seen Disney do not so great stuff. So I love this. The jet skis at this point now have the tangled lanterns, so it'll make it seem like the tangled lanterns are floating around. This is sort of a reimagining of the Phantasmic Princess sequence, right? So we have the love portion. All three barges going to reveal Disney prince and princess, Disney couples. And in really beautiful setup. So like the Little Mermaid one, they're under this beautiful LED stained glass looking canopy in the boat. It's Eric and Ariel. Then we have Rapunzel and Flynn with all the lanterns, and a pretty impressive setup with the magic carpet in the moon. So they're flying sort of above a crescent moon, are Aladdin and Jasmine. These are beautiful. Sadly, not up close in this video. You see them a little better in our video we took in pretty much the prime viewing space, but we may go back and shoot this again and kind of get a close-up angle on these because they're very, very pretty. This arrangement, the three themes tying together, the music, they did such a phenomenal job on this soundtrack for this show. The original stuff, capturing the emotion of these movies, weaving them through each other seamlessly in ways you never thought of. I mean, sadly, it's true of a lot of stuff in theme parks. Video never does things justice. Nighttime shows, I think, are always especially true of that, but at least you get an idea of what you're in for. And this is one of those where I think, like, the video's still great, but I think seeing this in person, it's way more emotional. You get caught up in more of it. There's so much you're not seeing. It's so hard. There's no camera lens wide enough to give you the full picture of everything that's happening. But these barges are great. All the movement, the sinking of them. Perfect. I'm just caught up. I'm watching the show now because I love it. Peter Pan ship is coming back in. What I think is amazing is I think Disney entertainment is such a universal language. So I don't understand what they're saying, but at the same time, having seen so many nighttime shows at Disney parks in my life, I somehow also know exactly what they're saying, right? Like, I don't know what Peter and Wendy are even talking about here, but at the same time, I have some idea of what they're setting up here and where the show is going. I know we're tired of Moana. This, again, is where I feel like Moana belongs. Coco and Moana, I think. Strength is the music. It works in nighttime shows. What's funny is it kind of died in Enchantment. I don't know what they did in Enchantment to do this wrong, but now you're going to see what Moana looks like in a nighttime show and it's done right. But you've also seen that in Fantasmic at Disney World. That new little sequence is also, you know, Moana done right in a nighttime show. So now we're getting into the conflict. We got to have our conflict before the final act of the nighttime show. There has to be something for the heroes to overcome, right? So it feels like this big triumphant emotional moment at the end of the show, which is, I think, you know, I think that's the hindrance on Harmonious a bit is, you know, I know Illuminations wasn't set up in that way, but it kind of was. It builds the right way across the show. Your show's got to ebb and flow, have highs and lows. You got to have this conflict high before you have the big, pretty, emotional, you know, finale. This is my favorite segment. I think the genius of having Moana and Frozen coexist in this sort of battle sequence and play into each other, and it's beautifully done, and all the songs combined together tell the right story. You know, Moana's unsure of things, and we're going into the unknown. And then the combination of Moana having the battle with Show Yourself. It all just works together, you know, story-wise and then obviously structure-wise so perfectly. Moana's on her ship on top of one of the barges out by the Miracosta. You can see her in the distance there. Again, really jaw-dropping in person to see her with the full, like her boat fully realized, the detail. It looks right. It looks like it hopped right off the screen and into the lagoon. Let's build this big emotional song. There we go. This is my absolute favorite moment in the show. I love Into the Unknown so much. I think this is the absolute most perfect song ever made for nighttime shows. Even in Enchantment, it's the one good part of Enchantment. It's got these great moments where it's perfect for Pyro to go off and look at this. These are just low level. This is stuff you can get away with, but they match perfectly thematically with the number and the character. And now, like the dragon in Fantasmic, we get I forget the actual term for that. It's Te Fiti before she's transformed back. She's sort of this lava, this volcano island monster because the heart of Te Fiti was taken. So we're setting the lagoon on fire a little bit here, less than Fantasmic, less than the Disney Sea Fantasmic, but enough to get the point across. But again, like these two characters, depending which side of the lagoon you're on, you get two different shows. You have essentially the Elsa side and the Moana side. And then this is ingenious. That star is the heart of Te Fiti, and it rises up into, there it goes. It goes into that part. I mean, the heart is restored. She is Tafiti again, and this great moment with the lasers, the lights, the pyro, the music. Just ingenious, using that structure to its fullest. Again, not the biggest, the best pyro you've ever seen, but when it's used in the right way, it achieves the same results. Pyro for the sake of pyro doesn't mean anything. Enchantment can have all the fireworks it wants, won't make it a good show. Musically, I love this flow between all of the movies. I've got goosebumps just hearing it now, reviewing this. Just Remember Me, and big triumphant versions of all these great movie soundtracks. Soundtrack was released, and I've listened to it endlessly the last couple of days. It's just so great. Especially like this last several minutes, basically from Moana through the end, just doesn't relent. You probably think the show's over there. We had this great moment, but no, there's more. Peter, Wendy, and the Lost Boys coming back. I love that the star shining through. There's enough smoke on the lagoon from the pyro to get these big streaks of light. That Peter Pan music, if you don't ever feel anything for that Peter Pan score, you're not alive. It's quintessential Disney, just evokes emotion the second you hear it. I love the light chase at the top of the tower. It's great. And now bringing out everything. This is what you do. You build the show. You introduce all the elements, right? And then at the end, all the elements come together at once. This is show writing 101, right? What a great song. All the characters, the dancers, all the floats. Prince and princesses with more characters, with more dancers, the jet skis. Projections, just color. Just give it a backdrop, bursting with color. These trumpets in the back just remind me so much of the Phantasmic End trumpets, too. Wishes. The characters, the Mickey and Minnie are now on the pirate ship in these gorgeous, the 20th costumes, these LED light up versions. And then Donald and Pluto and all of them have appeared and raised in these special costumes out of the other barges. Peter Pan score kicks back in a bit. We go full rainbow now. Pause, let things breathe, give some cute little, emotional Disney thing about wishes and dreams and blah, but you know how these all go. But it hits the right note, and then you let them say the thing, some imagination, or whatever it may be, and then you just blow everything off. There you go. this being Tokyo, we can't just kill the lights and let things play off. The audience knows the characters are still there. So we're gonna have to do this another rendition of the song, and we got to have the floats go at least a full rotation or more around the lagoon so everyone can wave or get a picture of their favorite character. And I mean, I think the playoff is one of the most important parts of any nighttime show, and I think it gets disregarded. I think Enchantment doesn't have it. Harmonious has this disorienting one that people think the show is still really going. You don't even realize the show ended. And in this one hits it kind of like World of Color and all those, where it's like, it's not the full show, but a bit of the show is still happening. Give you this nice sort of kiss goodnight at the end of the program. The nice slow version of the theme. You have stars twinkling on Prometheus, which eventually turn into the silhouette of Mickey. But see, like the projection mapping, they didn't try to overdo it to do too much. Really, just it sets a backdrop. If you watch the show from this side, it acts as Prometheus, right? Prometheus has lasers and stuff happening the whole show. But if you watch from the backside, they've essentially spent all this money just for. It's not the biggest viewing area either. The back of the lagoon. So they spent all this money really to just kind of please a small portion of the audience, which is pretty kind and thoughtful. I've heard people say like this could replace Harmonious and it would do better. I think it would. I think it's very Japan. It's very Japan. I don't know. Like, I think Phantasmic fulfills this quota for us, this character-heavy show that's more about performance than so much the pyro and maybe some other things. So for a resort that no longer has Phantasmic, this is a nice, thoughtful reimagining of that formula and that show. Give it a fresh presentation that really starts from scratch. I always like about their nighttime shows, they just kind of, they slowly fade away. I think it lets you reflect on what you just saw. You're not like the main action didn't just happen and now you're all fighting to get to the train, your car, whatever. You let it fade into the night. Some feverish waving from Mickey and Minnie at the front of the boat. I do love those costumes. They're great. Very cute. And we fade away. And so final review. Is it the best nighttime show of all time? No, I don't think it is. It is one of the best I've ever seen. It's definitely in the top 5 or 10. It's very much its own thing. I like that it's its own thing. I like that it treads on some Phantasmic territory, but it also really blazes its own path. It's kind of this weird love child between Harmonious and Phantasmic, right? Where it's a lagoon show. True lagoon show in the round, but using the Phantasmic elements, which is what Phantasmic was at Disney Sea, but I always felt like I don't know, like those barges never impressed me. I just didn't like the setup of their Phantasmic. I thought there were some weird portions that thematically didn't work out. Like Lilo and Stitch sort of thrown in the middle of Phantasmic. It's like the alien like in a jet ski running from the law. Like it just didn't feel like Phantasmic to me. This picks a theme, right? Like it's the Disney Sea character set. These are characters from the different ports of call, right? Even some that maybe haven't really been introduced yet. Coco certainly works with Lost River Delta, and probably that's what's going to happen. And then Fantasy Springs brings in Frozen, Entangled, and Peter Pan. And so it's a very Disney Sea show in that it's like, this is our character set. These are the characters of our park, past, present, and future. And let's put them together in a show. And I think they feel natural together, this group. Nothing's jarring. Nothing takes you out of it. And again, musically, it's up there. I think it's probably, for me, just a notch or so below Illuminations, Reflections of Earth musically, which is probably still the unachievable, unattainable goal for music in a Disney Parks entertainment offering. But it's not. I don't think it's far off. I think they did a very, very nice job of it. I think it's worth seeing. I mean, it's certainly worth your time, right? It's a very long show. It's over 30-something minutes in length. You get a lot of bang for your buck. I would recommend getting the Premier Access. I know it's a couple bucks, but it does promise you a pretty good view of the show. If you don't win the lottery seats are not bad, or lottery seats, I say. It's you get to either sit on the ground or stand somewhere. But I think the Premier Access was worth it, especially if you have limited time. If you're only going to that park once or twice in a visit, if you're watching this, you've likely traveled across the ocean to get there. I would recommend it. I think it absolutely needs to be seen. It's a must see. Where Fantasmic, I would have told people to skip it in some cases and just go do, Journey Center of the Earth or 20,000 Leagues or Tower of Terror. I mean, it's a park full of the most amazing rides, and maybe I'll feel that way again once there's 4 brand new rides that are just should be unbelievable, opening in Fantasy Springs in just a couple months' time. But in the end, I fell in love with it. I think this and Fantasmic are my 2 favorite nighttime shows in the world right now, and I don't know that I can pick one of them currently. I like them both very much, and it's a must-see. It's an achievement, a must-see, and I think proof that, again, even with Lagoon in the Round and giant mega screen and light infrastructure, you can do that, and you could bring in and out of the lagoon every night. And maybe, we Harmonious is supposedly, it's announced to go away, but supposedly still not confirmed by Disney. They're going to throw away those barges and start over. And, is this some of it? I mean, yeah, if this is sort of the compromise where you can build sort of a big thing like that, and it is able to travel in and out and not ruin the vista across the lagoon during the day. Like, I don't care. Once it's dark, you want to sit that out there for 2 hours, that's fine with me. But at sunset, I want to see that across that lagoon. And same with Disney Sea. Like, I would be just as mad, even maybe more mad, because Disney Sea is the most beautiful park on earth. If that was sitting there all day, I couldn't imagine. I would implode, because that park is just absolutely perfect in every way. And for that matter, World Showcases too. It's, that lagoon is gorgeous, and Florida sunsets are pretty magical. So we want to keep those, that view any time of day, we want to keep that as it's intended to be. So in review, it is a show that needs to be seen to be believed. Get it? I'll leave now. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this honest review of Believe, Sea of Dreams. If you did, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you'd like to see more of these honest reviews. We'll keep doing them as long as people like you keep watching them. So thanks for viewing, and we'll see you real soon.